spoiler alert, I forgot to tell y'all, spoiler alert about this.
Random, I got purpose. Things coming together so beautifully. One day, it all makes sense. Just you wait and see. Take this journey with me. Purposely, random. Purposely, random. Purposely, random. Purposely,
Hey, what's up, you guys? It's your girl Angelise, and this is my podcast, Purposely Random, a podcast where we talk about interpersonal skills development, intrapersonal skills development, mental health, and all things that are random. A little bit of singing. Today, we're going to be talking about WandaVision and arguing with myself. Today, I have a very special guest. Her name is Jenine Writes. So because she be writing, she out here. All right. Jenine, tell the people a little bit about yourself.
Like Angela said, I'm a writer. Hi, I'm Jenine. I am a writer. Not published yet, working on things. Currently working in the school system, actually working with special needs individuals. I've loved comic books and stories and television and movies since I was a kid. Devoured everything I could read as a child. When I couldn't, like when the school books, children's books bored me, I stuck it to the adult section and read all the bigger books because I wanted bigger books. So I love story. It's a passion of mine to tell stories well and authentically. So I'm excited about today. I'm excited to talk about WandaVision.
Yes, listen. Me and Janine met in this group called Young, Black, and Christian. And when I tell you how good it feels to not only meet someone young, Black, and Christian, but someone who is a Marvel enthusiast, such as myself, I just was like, Lord, you are just aligning things. I just look at you, the beauty that is you, Lord. And so Janine and I, and another friend that we have, Whitley, we started talking about WandaVision. We actually started doing a book club first, and then we kind of just naturally gravitated towards talking about different things, WandaVision being one of those. And during our discussion, Janine brought up a lot of topics and a lot of connections that I was like, girl, I didn't even think about it like that. Somebody else has to hear this because listen, these are some
Oh
good
Lord.
topics. These are some good things you're bringing up. And so, what we're going to be doing today is kind of talking about Wanda and like what she was really experiencing, which is the grieving process. So, that kind of leads me to my first question that I had for you, Janine, and that was um, going to be tell me like your overall thoughts about WandaVision.
I okay. One thing in general for me, Marvel is a very punchy storytelling style. They're very like boom, 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 especially with the movies. And I know with movies, you gotta kind of give. You can only give a microcosm of story. And I love story, but I always want to go deeper. I always want to go further. So I'm super. I've been excited about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but I'm also excited about the way they're now bridging that into the television because now I feel like that television is going to be a way to like kind of expand stories and go deeper. Like
Mhm.
we definitely saw WandaVision, like we're seeing because as of now, the first two episodes of Falcon and Winter Soldier have been out. So even seeing that microcosm of a story, like for me, it's like this is what I live for. I want to know
Yes.
what the characters are thinking and feeling and being before they get to the battlefield. So
Right.
WandaVision as a whole was a great like it was an aftermath story. Cause I mean you were having the end like end game comes out and we're like, yeah, Thanos defeated and the
Mhm.
blip and we're like, yeah, we're done. People came back. But it's like that question of like how do we rebuild?
Yeah.
Um and Wanda's story was a very much a personal rebuilding, whereas I feel like Falcon and the Winter Soldier is going to be a lot more about like everyone, like how people rebuild communities and lifestyles and all that. But I was really excited to see Wanda kind of fleshed out and see, kind of dig into her story, where she's from. All the little glimpses of story you get in the movies, they go in depth, and I loved every part of that. Um,
Yes.
so yeah.
100%. Like, and spoiler alert, I forgot to tell y'all, spoiler alert about this. Hopefully I can put that in beforehand. But anyway, spoiler alert. I loved seeing Wanda, the connections that she had to each of those different like episodes, like how it had the different themes, like man, Malcolm in the Middle. I done forgot all these shows that this girl done put on this thing. But
And,
Bewitched was one of them. And like
yeah.
just seeing all of those different things. And at first we thought it was so random, but then to see how it connected to her childhood, it just really like moved me, especially since these were things that she used to connect with her family, and for her to bring those back, especially in the time when she's grieving, I felt was really powerful.
Yeah.
What thoughts kind of crossed your mind when you realized we were seeing Wanda go through that grieving process, and how did it like kind of mirror some of your own journey?
See, I feel bad because you done told them I say all these deep things, and now if I don't be deep,
No,
it's gonna. Congratulations,
no, you
Angela.
played
You have
yourself, huh? I played
stressed
myself.
me
Listen.
out. No.
Oh.
So I guess in general, like her grieving process, it started with I think it was really interesting how her process, though it kind of was things were beginning to unravel. I think when Agnes comes, and that moment is where, because I feel like at the beginning she's just coping. Like
Right.
she's thrust into this world and she's just trying to make the best of it and keep everything together. Everything is going to chaos, everything's getting crazy, but she's trying to keep a lot of things together. And it's not until Agnes comes that she goes, it's like a moment for her to stop and think
Mhm.
about it. And so for me, my journey, like in life in general, like it's very easy, I think, for all of us to like cope. But I'll say for myself, I was chief coper. Like I'm
Mhm.
going to get by. I'm going to keep my nose to the grindstone. I'm going to get it done. And I've throughout life, at different seasons of my life, I've had that sense of, all right, we got to get it done. You're running, you're gunning, you're not thinking about
Yeah.
what all these things mean. They're just happening, and you're just putting out into all these little fires that you're just kind of putting out. And it's not until that moment where she finally gets to the point of things are out of her control, Agnes shows up and goes, now let's talk about this. That she's
Yeah.
kind of like, how did I get here? And I think
Yeah.
that becomes kind of the turning point. It's a dark point for her because things are really as much out of control as they can be. She's literally trapped. All her powers, abilities, whatever she had that was allowing her to like cope and deal with stuff. All her coping mechanisms are now stripped away. And
Mm.
now she's faced with, now we have to just deal with reality. Now I have to actually think intentionally about how I got here, and why I'm here, and then how do I get out. And like I said, Agnes is like an unlikely candidate for her to get emotional healing and growth,
Mhm.
because she's definitely doing it from a place of, I just need to find out why you're doing it, how you did this, so I can get this power. But it ends up being like a therapeutic experience, this wake up call of like, oh, I don't have any of my coping mechanisms at my disposal. Now I have to deal. Um, and for me, I've experienced that several times in my life. And I think one of the most poignant moments was when I dropped out of college. So I dropped out of college, and
Mhm.
I did go back eventually, but for a while it looked a little shaky.
Right.
Um, and I had dropped out of college. I had spent basically 19 years of my life performing and doing. And my first year of college went actually well. I was stressed, I was pressed, and I felt like this is too much, but
Mhm.
I was able to pull it off. And so when I kind of was trying to tell people, hey, something's wrong, I didn't have words for it, I didn't know, but something was wrong.
Mhm.
No, like it was kind of like, you're fine. You got a 3.0, you're good. Like I don't understand the problem. So I went back for my sophomore year of college, and everything fell apart.
Mm.
And so when everything kind of fell apart, that was my moment of truth. I literally spent my spring semester of sophomore year trying to like get a grade for a class. I failed every class. Like I was really going, if I can, maybe I could do it in history. Maybe I could do it in my math class. Maybe I could, can I piece this together? Can I hand this in late? Can I hand you in 3 pages of a 5-page paper? Can I hand you, like, what can I do? And I was stressing and struggling. And I had literally got to the point, like, it's really funny because Wanda was like at one point with the bird when she's like, you know, and things are poofing and all that stuff around her,
Yeah.
but the bird's still there and not disappearing. And I feel like that's
Yes.
kind of the place I hit. Like I was like trying to pull things together. I remember my thing, like I said, I've been reading since, you know, forever. I read,
Mhm.
I tear through books. Freshman year of college, even I'm I was like one of the few kids. Apparently, I didn't know other people did this. That wasn't skimming. Like I never skimmed. To this day, I have never skimmed. I
Mm.
read everything, and I read fairly fast. I'm not saying this as a brag thing. I'm saying it's just the truth. I read very quickly, so
Mhm.
I was used to bulleting through books, reading through things, taking notes, remembering, discussing, like, and being like on it. I got
Mhm.
to the point at one point where I was reading pages and I could not recall any piece of information. I was drawing a blank. I had my first
Mhm.
bout with sciatica, which is a pinched nerve situation. I didn't know at that time that I had sciatica. I just knew my legs stopped working. It was a
Mhm.
long story. It was just a crazy time in my life. Um, and nothing, like I literally physically couldn't get out of bed. So that was a moment for me where it was like, well, none of my coping mechanisms, none of my working hard, none of my, you know, speed reading, none of my nothing was getting me through, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
getting me through this period of time. And I ended up having to drop out because I had a breakdown. I would call my parents crying, I can't take it anymore. One of my professors knew I was messed up. He hugged me.
Mm.
Like, and he was just like, "You're not doing well." like,
Mhm.
and so I feel like that became my moment of like, how did I get here? And how do I get out? Like actually having to go into that dark place and say, hey, let's do it. And I think when I watched Wanda's story, her being confronted with the rules of life that she was applying to other people, like especially with her kids, like you can't just bring things back to life. You can't just bring things back to life.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, she's living with a husband who is dead. You
Mhm.
know, meanwhile, she is bringing kids out of her imagination. She's breaking all the rules, but she's trying to maintain enough semblance of order to keep up the facade that, no, I'm a good person. These are good things. You know, all of that stuff. Like,
Mhm.
and so going through that, like, she literally, and it's really interesting that she goes under the house with Agnes and she ends up entering into what is essentially a dark place, a
Mhm.
place of brokenness. And
Right.
then she has to kind of face her demons, face her trauma in order to find out where she comes from, why she is, and what she's going, and make that decision of who she wants to be now.
Yeah.
And I think it's poignant to say also that there's a lot of hard choices she has to make too, and I think that's a part of her journey. I'm gonna stop because I feel like I just want to hear your thoughts. I'm
Well,
like going.
well, I
Go
mean,
ahead.
things like this are like really inspiring to like just kind of keep like talking and talking. And like for me, I know my reprocessing has a lot to do with like just hearing myself kind of like speak out loud my thoughts. So I definitely appreciated, and this is going to kind of tie into the next thing I wanted to talk about. I definitely appreciated the things that you're saying about how Agnes kind of like made her uncomfortable, so she had to face things. But what I loved was by Agnes shaking things up, Wanda in turn started to argue with herself, meaning for me, Vision was like her subconscious that she was suppressing and keeping, like, I know this man is not alive. I know I just made him up. I know I watched him die. What was it, 3 times? Maybe it was 2 times. I'm not sure. Like she killed him, and then Thanos had killed him, and then
Yeah.
she had to watch him die later on in the actual show. But she had watched him die like 2 times, so she knew deep down that he was not alive. And even in her waking up and being like in this new town, which we later find out that she created out of her deep sadness, like seeing that he had like picked out this town for them to live in. And just that moment, like she was barely getting by, and just to see that like finally push her to where she has to express these emotions, however wrong people may say it is, I don't care, because listen, I'm for everything she did. Okay, those people didn't die. They might have been sad, they might have been away from
Oh
their
Lord.
family living half life. But I'm team
That's
Wanda.
oh Lord, not Team Wanda.
I'm team.
I can't be. And the reason I can't be is because her trauma caused trauma for other people.
I
And
know.
they're not, and unfortunately, because of the situation, they're not going to get the help to work through that stuff
I know.
at all, because they're not important to the, you know, grand scheme of things in that way. So no one's going to send them to therapy. No one's going to talk to them about how to deal with this,
I know.
what it's like to be a prisoner. And the thing is, her grief, she struggled with, that she was a prisoner of her sense of loss and feeling alone, but
Mm.
she created in turn that same prison for other people. Like the one lady who said, my daughter, can you just let her come out of her room? Like,
Yeah.
it's like, I can't imagine how scared her, even if her daughter was 16, to be like, I can't imagine how her daughter feels not being able to leave like her room because
Mm.
of something in her head that's telling her she can't come out. And
Dang.
it's, and then she's like a prisoner. And I think about how when grief goes unprocessed, it
Mm.
damages others. Like, you know, this saying goes, hurt people,
Right.
right? So I feel like she was hurting, but in turn, she created a prison for everyone else. So she was hurting other people.
All right, Janine, I feel you, and I know you're right, but listen,
You
I'm
gotta
still
let you.
I'm still Team Wanda, even though like what you're saying is so valid, and I feel so bad for those sideline characters. Um, the background of the town, I feel bad for them because you're very right. She's causing trauma to these people. I did love that she didn't just change their minds. It's like she sat in her hurting of them though. And I
Yeah.
feel like there's so much honor in her not continuing to lie to make herself look better or feel better about what she did, because and that's another thing, like Vision definitely through Agatha kind of shaking things up, Vision, that is Wanda, was like, yo, what you're doing is wrong. You know what I'm saying?
No,
Like,
I'm mad you just let me call her Agnes. Her name was Agatha.
Agatha, my bad, girl. Agatha
Girl, you
Agnes.
messed me up. I'm sitting here saying it and you ain't saying nothing to me. I'm like, this doesn't feel right, but I could not remember. Like, I'm gonna be real, y'all. I just, for those of you who watch it, I'm gonna be real. I did grow up with X-Men, but I grew up with like the '90s cartoon X-Men,
Right.
and I read some of the comics. My Scarlet Witch was, though I know her as Scarlet Witch, and I know some of the things about her. I later watched X-Men Evolution, which was not as good. I digress. Um, I don't know all of the side stories.
Right.
I will be honest. I feel bad because I already feel like, you know, nerd culture, like I'm gonna hear the gatekeepers going, "You're not a real fan. You called her Agnes. You know what? You can have that. I'm gonna let you have that because I just like good stories. So I don't. Although I am a Marvel fan, I understand I'm not a stan, y'all. I'm a fan, not a stan.
Well, to be
So,
fair, she did go by a different name in the actual show. So I think it's Agatha in the show, but it's like something hard. Now I'm messed up, Janine. Oh Lord. But
we
anyways,
can edit.
whatever. Look, this is the thing. The point of the matter is we stand for the show. You know, I didn't read the comic books. I ain't gonna hold y'all. I looked at some YouTube videos, several of them, and I was like, I'm gonna nerd out on this, and y'all can feel how you want to feel, but this is my podcast, and we gonna do how we do. Back to Vision though. I I feel like for me, before I didn't process my grief, I suppress a lot. Like I don't like to feel it. I become numb in these situations. And it wasn't until I started to really go to therapy that I like started to really unsurface like my subconscious things and like learning how to reprocess those things. And I feel like that's the process that we're seeing we're seeing therapy in real life, where it's like she went to this extreme place and finally someone's like, hey bro, like this is not right, and then she's like, yeah, this isn't right, and then finally we see things happen to make her come into herself. And I think that that's important. That's the most important part. Like, even though she's headed to a really dark place, even darker than she has been, it's still, she's coming into her power and to her own voice, which I think is going to be so amazing to see. How the Marvel cinema universe plays that out, because in the comic books it's a totally different story. Like we get into House of M, which I'm a huge fan of, and we get into some other things where you see just how powerful Wanda really is, and they kind of talk about it in the show. And I think we're going to see some things in Multiverse, the Doctor Strange movie, so I'm here for it. Now, Jenine, I wanted to ask you kind of how you felt about that whole vision, WandaVision, actual vision that is made from.
Yeah, I was gonna say before I answer that, one thing also I want to point out, her use of TV to process. Mm-hmm. As somebody who actively uses storylines to TV to process through emotions, because I do that, to like process through my thought process and what I'm feeling and emotions. I tend to watch shows and identify with certain characters and kind of go, oh, when they said this, it reminds me of how I felt when my brother said this, or how I felt when my boss said this. So yeah. I'm here for it. I think it's a safe space to deal with hard issues. I think it can become a safe way to deal with that. Because if I'm watching a TV show and I start seeing someone being selfish, I might go, wow, I'm selfish, without someone being like, hey, Jenine, you're selfish. I might become very defensive if Angela was to approach me and say, hey, you're selfish. I'm like, oh, no, I'm not. How dare you?
How dare you?
Whereas with that voice, because that is my I've been accosted voice. But if I'm watching a TV show and I hear them saying similar things to what I've said, and I go, that person's selfish, you hear narrative, and you can easily look at that narrative, see where that person is wrong, and then turn it on yourself and go, oh, that's what I missed. Because now I'm in a safe space and I don't feel attacked. So my vulnerability is showing, and now I can actually realistically look at things. And so in general, I feel like even to the end, where at the one point they're all, because when you said Vision, it triggered the thought of him doing that moment where he goes, I don't know, Wanda is doing this. And it seems like she doesn't even want us. And he's like doing that little, real world chair talk,
confessionals.
TV, like, it's like the confession booth. Hey guys, this is what I was, and I can't believe Wanda is keeping me out of it, and he's talking. And then he had this moment of like, why am I talking to you? I need to go do this. Right. And I think that's what essentially the whole show is, like her kind of processing through life and the life she thinks she should have, the life she ended up with, and what she's lost and what she's gained and who she wants to be, from this very safe vantage point of, I'm watching TV. I'm safe because it's only TV. It's not real. So I think in general, I definitely see where Vision is definitely at first I wasn't sure, just because of, we talked about spoilers. So just because of the way it originally was positioned, it felt like that was the real Vision that she somehow brought back to life at first. Yeah. Because she kept seeing him dead, but then and I kept thinking, oh no, she stole Vision's body and reanimated the corpse, and oh my God. Yeah,
definitely.
And I was like, so originally for me, Vision having his own thoughts and feelings and beginning to argue with her seemed natural. It's like, oh, you've given enough power for him to think of himself as himself. Yeah. And he's now, because he's Vision, asking questions. Right. But then when I started realizing, no, there was never a Vision there. She did that straight from her power, her magic. Yeah. Then it became like, oh, she needs to let this go, but she doesn't know how. Right. And this is all just an elaborate opportunopportunity for her to process through and let go. Right. It's all just an elaborate, this is the life I wanted to have. Because in real life, when all her ideas about future life and all her dreams and plans of loving Vision, and maybe she did think she'd make a family with him. I don't know how his cybertronics works. Anyway, maybe she wanted that. When he died, it all died with, like, all of her dreams of that kind of life died, like, immediately within that moment. But then like the journey for her then was to learn how to say goodbye to those, because that was a physical manifestation of her dreams dying. Because she wasn't going to have Vision anymore. She wasn't going to have the family. She wasn't going to have, like, he bought her that house, the property he bought for her so they could live a life together. So when he died, all chances of that were wiped away. So she actually now is going through the grieving process of saying, this is the death of my dreams. This is the death of the hopes that I had.
Yeah.
And I think that process was lived out in a very dramatic way, but I think it was necessary for her to be able to actually come to an understanding so that she could let it go.
Yeah.
And that definitely was a process. And I think that definitely was essentially a very elaborate funeral for her dreams. And
and the closure that we so often don't get. And that's kind of like why I'm so team, and I know it's controversial, why I'm so team her getting the closure that she needed. Because, I mean, honestly, we all do some sense of that when we're really in our most hurt places, and I hope that we don't do it to that degree. Let me just go ahead. Like, I don't know. If
don't build new worlds, don't build new lives.
Powers, baby, I be building my own worlds anyway inside my mind.
I know, I can only imagine. Oh Lord.
I can only imagine what kind of town I would have taken over. But I'm team her going through that process. And, like, obviously I didn't want people to get hurt. But I just thought it was so beautiful to see how human, even in her superpowerness, how human she was. And I think that why I love that so much is because it shows that we need to normalize doing the work. Because you showed me a meme the other day that talked about what's this boy's name? Sebastian Stan. His character is Winter Soldier. Yeah, Bucky. And it talks about how he, like, outlived all of his entire family, spent decades, like, killing innocent people, under mind control. Like, he loses his best friend and he's all alone in the world. Like, he literally has to, like, meet other people that are, like, the age that he would be to kind of have some sort of sense of, like, connection, but he's still kind of this outside world, and he goes to therapy, and that's great. You know, he has the resources and things to do that. Whereas you look at someone like Wanda, Wanda, who goes about, like, controlling that town. So she needed the therapy, and she took therapy into her own hands. But if she would have maybe culturally been brought up in a place that was like, you should go to therapy, you know, or something like that, maybe that story would have been different. But I think that I love that not DC, girls, calm down, Marvel is showing us the importance of, like, therapy.
And I was gonna say, and this is a little off subject, but I was actually thinking earlier about one of the things, like I said, I like digging into characters sometimes because Marvel is so punchy with the way it tells stories. You don't get to dig as much in, especially when you have a cast as large as you have for Infinity Wars and Endgame. You just really don't have time to be like, let's tell individual stories. But one of the shining moments of the storytelling was with a couple of key moments with Tony Stark. And the moment that sticks out in my mind the most is when he starts having the nightmares. He ends up having a panic attack in Iron Man 3. And I thought about that and I was like, wow, who helps the superheroes? Like, who helps them process through gaining power, seeing what they've seen, battling what they've battled, and, like, you know, not having anyone in essence stronger than them. Like, you are the final answer.
Yeah.
If you can't solve it, Thanos wins.
Right.
You know what I mean? If you can't do this, then everything is gone to, hell in a handbasket. But
Yeah.
I feel like that internal battle that all heroes of that caliber would have to go through is like, that's crazy. What the kind of law? It's like, you can't even imagine, like, if you think about Wanda being like, I had to kill somebody I cared about because I was the only one powerful enough to do it. There wasn't a moment where it was like, well, maybe Tony or her. Like, it's like, no, it has to be you.
Right.
And then, like, even in the middle of her having to destroy it, then watching him be reanimated and being like, okay, dead again.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do I process that? How do I even, who do you talk to?
Yeah.
So I guess like there is a level for me where I'm like, man, there's no space, there's no room. You do end up just coping. However they end up coping. It's a wonder that Tony is an alcoholic. It's a wonder that, like, I just feel like, just take a pill and make it all go away.
Yeah, but it also speaks to, like, even what you're saying about alcohol being a big major way that even regular super powerless people, they used to cope. I think that that's why it's important to have like an anchoring. And I think that it's great that they do have a thing like Avengers, even though, like, I know they don't have group therapy sessions. Spoiler alert for Winter Falcon. I'm not Winter Falcon, girl. It's called Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I've just been putting the names together. I love that they had to go to group therapy. Sam,
I loved it. No, I love. Well, we're not okay. So I'm just gonna quickly say this. I love their interactions. I love the interactions of those two characters. And most of the reason why I love the interactions there is largely because there's not this romantic, like, and when I say romantic, I don't mean like love interest. I mean super romanticized, I guess would be a better way to say it. Like, idea of like, and we're buddies and we wrestle, but we're good. And like, it's like, nah, they're really looking at each other like, I don't even like you. Like, I don't like you either. And they're like antagonizing each other to try to, but it's like a very real, and I mean, eventually obviously the show's about the two of them, so they're going to learn how to work together. We get that. But just the talking through and like even having Bucky go to, I mean, his therapy is court mandated, to be clear. But to talk about like, nah, in real life, if you went through something like that, yeah, you would need help coping.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't want to go into, but Falcon and Winter, they have these moments, and like there are realizations that come in therapy and in that doing the work that don't come if you don't stop and think. And I think that's a big line in WandaVision. Like, she didn't stop and think, and then finally when Agatha shows up and it's like, who we need to figure out where you got these powers from. Homegirl is like, wait, now I got to relive. And she literally was like, I don't want to go through that door.
Yeah.
And I've never felt something so real in my life. Wanda goes, I don't want to go through that door. And she goes, but you have to. But the crazy thing is, she goes through the door and she's scared to death. And she goes through all these doors. The last two doors, I believe it is, she runs to them because she starts to begin to connect pieces. And she's like, I gotta do this. It stops being about pleasing Agatha and saving her kids. And it starts being about saving herself and getting to the bottom of this so she can understand.
Yeah. I mean, this show is something that, like, I feel like is more than just one conversation, because it's like so many layers. And like, especially when you start to look at like the internal arguments, the external consequences, like you were talking about with the other people that have suffered because of our healing that we have to go through. I do want to stop though, and I kind of want to like talk about something we kind of touched on a little bit with the whole Falcon Winter Soldier thing, which is like friendship that's budding. Because at first, they wasn't really feeling each other. There's like Captain America's here, whatever. And I kind of want to tie it into like our friendship, because I feel like as y'all might not know, me and Jenine are internet friends. Listen, look at this. What this this pandemic brought us together in a mighty way. And it was so funny because Jenine had expressed to me like she hasn't really had internet friends. So this is kind of a new experience. And I feel
Yeah.
like I wanted to kind of ask you like how has this pandemic and social media kind of like impacted your social life and friendships that you're gaining?
So I am an introvert, INFP to be exact, Enneagram 4, I believe. Um, and so if you know anything about Enneagram 4, it's a fear type.
Mm.
Um, and I struggle with a lot of anxiety, right? I have generalized anxiety about almost anything you could think of. So people
Mhm.
think of anxiety as you're afraid all the time. It's not that. It's just this general feeling like for me, it's a running tally of everything that's probably going to go wrong in the next, 5 minutes. Um, all the time. So there's always like, and I'm always in, and then because I'm an introvert, an INFP, like a dreamer, I'm in my head. So I'm in my head all the time for fun. I'm in my head for fear. I'm in my head all the time. And one of the chief things for me has been like my last job. I worked 7 years in New York. Um, in an organization working with youth and families and stuff. And so what I ended up doing was a lot of program stuff, a lot of, public speaking and program and running around with kids and being in large groups. And I kind of had to fight through anxiety every day doing that. And so because my capacity was kind of overextended by that, I literally like with friends, my friends were work friends. And
Mhm.
I kind of didn't. I had friends that I knew before work. I had friends that I knew from college, but I kind of focused in on my work friends because this is the work we were doing. I didn't have the capacity to be like, let me do these things for fun. I didn't do a lot of like reaching
Mhm.
out to people because one, I'm introverted. I have high anxiety. And I had a lot that I was battling through daily with just doing my job.
Yeah.
And so for me, a lot of my like I wasn't socializing. Like I
Mhm.
didn't socialize for fun. I socialized for work. And then when I finished socializing for work, I went home, I read books, and I went to bed. I
Right.
crocheted as well. Sometimes I would crochet. Um, so then like pandemic hits and our thing is retreats and events and large scale events, 30, 40, 50 kids, stuff like that.
Mhm.
And you kind of realize, well, we can't meet in groups. No, New York got to the point where I think when we really started realizing it's going to be a problem, they had gotten down no groups of 10. We ran a summer camp program. We had to cancel that.
Mhm.
All of that became like, we can't go out. Like the restaurants closed, everything was shut down in March. And I suddenly realized my workload decreased by like 75%.
Mhm.
And I didn't have anything to do. And I kind of got, had decided, let me tell you, I decided in January I was going to start dating. So I got myself some profiles online and did that whole thing. And then March, everything shuts down. So who the heck am I dating? So that was,
Yourself. Just
yeah,
kidding.
like honestly, bro, honestly, yes, I have all this social time.
Right.
I'm obviously on dating apps and whatever, and I, end up Facebooking and I started, and I never comment on posts on the internet. Like I really don't. I like statuses. I'm in groups on
Mhm.
Facebook, but I would just like stuff or save pictures and send it to other people that I know. And I really didn't like communicate. Got involved with different groups, mostly Christian groups actually.
Mhm.
And through that, I met a couple of friends. And um, one friend basically met me. I said, I'm going to introduce myself in this singles group.
Mhm.
Introduce myself in this singles group. I met a young lady actually who was just like, I like your vibe, sis. Let's talk. Like, hit me up. Like, we're
Mhm.
just gonna be friends. I'm here for, like we could just do this. I feel like we'll get along. I'm
Right.
like, all right. Like, And in reality, I'm one of those people, like, I have to warm up to you. It
Yeah.
helps when people are more outgoing than me, because then I can get a feel for everything that they are, and then I can kind of ease into that. It's harder when I meet other introverts,
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes other introverts, like, I have to be the loud social one, and I'm like, yeah, it's exhausting. But like, it's like I don't want to be the social one. That's why I think I have quite a few friends who are extroverted as a result of that, because it's easier for me to just be like, let me see if I like you. I don't like you. Move on.
Move
Or let
on.
me see if I like you. You're cool. We can do this. And I think extroverts are a lot more patient
Mm-hmm.
with that part, because they're like, so they're used to the rebuff, and then like they're like a lot more likely to bounce back, where introverts get rebuffed and they're like, well, I'm going back to my hovel. um
Yes.
so anyway, I love introverts. I'm an introvert. My best friend's an introvert. He's great. But we actually only became friends because we worked together for 2 years. So we
There you
became
go.
like, we had to deal with each other. So we bonded. But so meeting people that way, it became this weird thing where, because she was like, do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? Do you want to do this? You want to
Mm-hmm.
get on the Zoom meeting? We're doing a call. There's a live concert. Do you want to go see this? And I started getting involved with more Facebook groups and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I actually got involved with an anime group that's for Black girls. We started
Mm-hmm.
doing, they would do weekly. I was, because I needed something to do, because
Yeah.
it was like I was reading and stuff, but I was like, nah, I was used to on Saturdays, going to the movies or
Yeah.
going out, to a restaurant, and I was starting to realize, shoot, like, I can't do the $5 movies anymore. I
Yeah.
can't do I can't go to the bookstore anymore. Everything's closed. The mall is closed. There's nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I had to start being more active on social media. And it became a kind of a doorway to me to start talking to people, meeting people, getting to know people. And I actually had a stop and look around moment
Mm-hmm.
at that time, because I think before that I was kind of just living my life. And like stopping and looking around kind of was like, wait a minute, there's Facebook groups for, like, I found a blurred group, a Black
Mm-hmm.
nerd group, and I'm like, what the heck is a blurred? Wait,
Right.
there's groups for this? I didn't know there were other Black people who watch anime, and not in an ignorant way, but literally just being like, I didn't know there was such a huge blurred culture.
Right.
Um, Crap, let me look into that. Let me meet, oh, there's Christian blurs, there's
Mm-hmm.
Christian nerds, there's Christian weebs, there's, oh snap, there's a fandom for everything I like.
Right.
And just connecting with people through that. And one of my neighbors actually remarked, because she's known me for a long time, and she said, this is the most, I said, oh yeah, I'm doing this thing. I ended up going on virtual dates and stuff.
Girl.
And
Okay.
I was just like, and she was like, this is the most social you've ever been. And I'm like, I know. Internet. I was like, the internet is awesome. Who knew?
Listen.
And so I feel like, and it also because of the aspect of writing. Like I said, I write. And just for me personally, I always feel like I express better in writing. Like I'm very verbal. I'm very
Mm-hmm.
verbose, as you can tell. But being able to walk into a space and write my thoughts out
Yeah.
through like posts and messages and contacting people and letting people get a feel for what I'm like, and getting a feel for what other people were like, just through writing, I feel like it opened up another kind of arena for me to express and be understood at a different level. And then so then by the time Facebook introduced these rooms and we're
Mm-hmm.
all in rooms talking to each other, I really was like, oh, I know these people. These people know me. We're
Yeah.
having conversation. And it's really funny because, people talking, a couple of my friends are like, oh, you're Facebook friends, and oh
Mm-hmm.
yeah, those people on the internet. And I'm like, well, they're real people.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't just messages. I video chatted. I know what Angela looks like.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? And I know what her voice sounds like. I know what she sounds like when she's, angry. I know what she sounds like when she's tired. Like, here are the people, like, you know what I mean? I know what she
Yes.
sounds like when she's laughing at a joke. Like, it's like, oh, these are real people. And I think it opened up a new realm for me, because I think, um, like I said, I lived with a high anxiety when I was younger. I knew a lot of people who would have friends that they met on MySpace or whatever. And I always thought, like, how do you do that?
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized, like, as it's grown, especially as the pandemic was going on, you start realizing, like, oh, there's opportunities here. There are people here. There's a space where you just take that step forward,
Yeah.
and then you watch who meets you there. And I think this time of pandemic and virtual, like this growing of virtual communities, it's really shifted a lot of my mind about what it takes to build community, what it takes to build relationship. Because I
Yeah.
think I did have a thought that it would look a certain way. I did, um, I did have a thought that, like, with friends were people you went to school with, or friends were people who you met at church, or friends were people that you worked at your job, friends were people you met in the bookstore. And to be like, well, a friend is who you choose to make your friend.
Right. Exactly.
And I feel like that becomes the thing. Like, I'm now learning how to choose into friendships.
Mm.
I think I would choose things before, but kind of almost unconsciously,
Yeah.
on some levels. But I also realized there were some people that I did have to, because they were difficult,
Mm.
make a real life choice. Like, there's a good friend of mine who I always tell him to the day. I remember October 2014 was when we became friends.
Mm.
And he said, "You're the only person I know who has a date for that." And I was like, I have a date for it because that's when I decided to be your friend.
Right.
Because before that, we were acquaintances and we knew each other from college and we worked together for a little bit, but I kind of didn't want to, like, be bothered, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
Um, but I kind of experienced a level of realizing I was being selfish. And
Right.
part of the reason why I didn't want to be friends with him was because I had an attitude problem. And the way we had to clash to understand each other, I didn't want to do the work.
Mm.
And then deciding to do the work and just kind of experiencing conviction and being like, I was wrong to treat you that way. I'm going to
Mm.
make a decision to treat you differently.
Mm.
And I feel like with a lot of other people, I made that decision a little less obviously.
Yeah.
But I think the friendships, even on the internet, have been, I'm choosing into this. Like, from the first introduction of, hey, you want to come do this?
Mm-hmm.
It's an active choice to say, I will be a part of this.
Yeah.
And I think that's another part of also boundaries. I thought it was very interesting to go back to WandaVision a little bit, um, where Wanda, though she tries to, like, Vision is given a tremendous leeway
Mm-hmm.
to do what it is he's doing, to investigate how he is. Because even though Agatha feels like, I'm pulling the strings, I'm doing stuff,
Right.
like, Wanda is still very much in control of Vision, but
Right.
she gives him some semblance of autonomy, which is why they're able to argue and fight. And I think the boundaries of knowing where you end and someone else begins, because I did realize part of the internet, with the loss of the external socialization, it's very easy for me to be like, well, I'm just going to socialize on the internet, and this is just what I'm going to do now to fulfill that need, and I'm just going to do that. I had to then actively make the choice to step back for periods of time
Yeah.
from the internet and say, I have real life friends that I can call on the phone that I
Mm-hmm.
haven't talked to in a month, and I need to choose into those relationships as well.
Yeah.
And it's really taught me the necessary boundaries for my relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's been a big part of my journey since the pandemic started. It's like, all these boundaries, where do I end? Where do you begin? I moved in with my sister. We share an apartment now.
Mm-hmm.
And I was living alone for a long time, and we decided to move in together because, finances it's better this way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but, like, even that boundary of, like, where does my free time, like, and her free time, link up? When
Yeah.
can we choose into being together, and when are we going to purposefully, rather than just falling into, I'm just living my life, you're just living your life, when are we going to actively choose into honoring our sisterhood, or when are we going to have to choose into honoring our individuality? So
Yeah.
it's a huge amount of boundaries setting that I'm learning right now.
Mm-hmm.
But
Speaking
I
of
didn't realize
boundaries,
I didn't know.
Girl, speaking of that too, I feel like this pandemic has brought me to boundaries too. And like actually like setting in them and like dealing with the consequence of making people treat me the way that I believe that they should treat me, you know, with respect and to like you said, very much choose me and make effort to choose this friendship or whatever we're trying to build. And what I've appreciated about you and I is that we have taken those moments to choose each other and really like learn those different boundaries and like work through things, even though this is like, I mean, yo, you're on the internet. I ain't got to talk to you. You know what I'm saying? Like we could have very easily done that. But what I've loved is that we have worked through this together. And like, I don't know, I'm just so in love with the community that has been created by us, like just not even the bigger platform YBC, but like just you and I and like the book club that we're doing and like even these conversations that we choose into. It's really great to see. I do want to close the podcast out though, because I know that you guys are probably wanting more of Jenine, more. But we gotta go. We gotta go ahead and go about our way.
Oh, no.
I'm gonna see if Jenine will come back. If you guys want more of this, just go ahead and like, comment below, talk to us more about what you liked about WandaVision. So for our very last segment though, Jenine, I do want to ask you a question. It's from this book, 3,000 Questions About Me. We talked a lot about, you know, bringing that subconscious to the conscious. So just off the top of your head, I just want you to answer one of these questions. It's not even going to be a crazy one. Okay, let's see. It's 1,772. What would be your dream car?
Any SUV, like I really struggle. I like big cars. I want an SUV or a truck of some sort. I lean towards SUVs because the only trucks I can picture are like pickups, and I know there are other types of trucks, but that is the only truck. Since I was 2, that is what a truck looks like to me, and God bless. I want cars that scream adventure and no limits. And I've been told that Jeeps are really good. I mean, Jeeps are fine, I guess. I'm not impressed with the Jeep, mostly because I don't want to climb to get into it. I feel like Jeeps are taller than trucks sometimes, and it bothers me. So yeah, I want an SUV and a motorcycle.
I'm here
and
for
a yacht.
it. And
No,
a
I'm kidding,
yacht.
not a yacht.
And an airplane.
Not a yacht.
And a jet. And I want it
No,
all.
but
know
yeah,
a dream
SUV or a
car.
motorcycle.
I honestly don't know if I have a dream car. I guess my dream car would be the car that I have now, which is not even all of that, but it's all that to me. I have a Toyota Camry, and I'm Jenine.
We are not supporting that. We are not supporting that. Listen, I support unadulterated Black joy, but this sounds like unadulterated Black mediocrity, and I'm not okay with it.
I'll be mediocre. I'll be that because I like my little baby. But anyways, thank you so much, Jenine, for joining me. I hope you all have enjoyed this conversation about WandaVision, arguing with ourselves, being internet friends, how this pandemic has changed our worlds, just like Wanda changed them worlds of those people, because we all are going through this traumatic. Listen, I'm doing some witch. We have all gone through
this is chaos magic.
It's chaos magic, Angela, right now. Listen,
chaos magic.
We need to talk about how the pandemic is chaos magic for us. It's a traumatic experience. But anyways, as always, be real, be you, do what you came here to do, and be the light that you want to be. Peace.
Things coming together so beautifully. One day it all makes sense. Just you wait and